Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we are diving deep into one of the world's most enduring and, let's be honest, spooky mysteries, the Bermuda Triangle. It's this stretch of ocean where hundreds of ships and planes have supposedly vanished into thin air. So, let's get into it.
You really can't talk about the Bermuda Triangle without starting at the heart of the legend, the one event that pretty much created its terrifying reputation, the disappearance of Flight 19.
So picture it. It's December 5th, 1945. The weather's great. 5 U.S. Navy bombers take off from Florida for what should have been a simple training mission. But then, not even 2 hours into the flight, things start to go horribly wrong. The flight leader radios in, totally confused. He says both his main compass and his backup have stopped working.
He was completely lost. The weather started turning ugly, and he made a huge fatal error. He thought they were over the Gulf of Mexico, but they were actually way out in the Atlantic. This one chilling transmission says it all. We don't know which way is west. A little while later, all 5 planes and the 14 men on board were just gone. And here's the kicker. A search and rescue plane sent to find them, with 13 crew members, also vanished that exact same night.
So yeah, just like that, this one baffling incident puts this patch of ocean on the map for all the wrong reasons, defining this huge and supposedly deadly part of the Atlantic.
And we're talking about a huge area here, 500,000 square miles of open ocean. Now, the name Bermuda Triangle actually didn't show up until a magazine article in 1964, but believe me, the spooky stories about this region go back way, way further.
And Flight 19 was hardly the first strange thing that happened out there. Decades before, in 1918, the USS Cyclops, which was one of the biggest ships in the Navy, vanished on a totally calm day with 306 people on board. No SOS, no wreckage, ever found. It just disappeared. And then you get into the stories that are straight up terrifying, like something from a ghost movie. In 1881, the crew of the Ellen Austin supposedly found another ship just drifting, in perfect condition, but with nobody on board. So they put some of their own guys on it to sail it back. Well, a storm separates them, and when they find the ship again, you guessed it, it was completely empty. Again, the new crew was gone.
I mean, it's an unbelievable story, right? But that's kind of the issue. Historians have dug around and found almost no credible proof that this Ellen Austin incident really happened. It looks more like a classic sailor's yarn, an urban legend. And that brings up the big question, where does the legend stop and the reality begin?
So what if we put aside the aliens, the sea monsters, and the time warps for a second? What if the real answers are actually rational? Let's take a look at what the science has to say.
Well, it turns out scientists have a bunch of pretty solid theories for what's going on in this region. And spoiler alert, none of them involve the supernatural. Let's break them down.
Okay, first up, magnetism. For a long, long time, the Bermuda Triangle was one of the few places on the planet with something called an agonic line. This is a spot where your compass needle points to true north and magnetic north at the same time. If you were an early navigator and you didn't know about this, well, that confusion could be deadly. You can see here, geographic north, or true north, that's the fixed top of the world. But magnetic north, that guy likes to wander around. The agonic line where they meet also moves, but the fact that it used to be right in the triangle gives us a very real physical reason for the exact kind of compass problems that Flight 19 reported.
Okay, next up, let's talk about the ocean floor itself. We think of the ocean as being super deep, but huge parts of the triangle are actually shockingly shallow. You see all that beautiful turquoise water on maps? Well, that's not just pretty, it's a warning sign. It means the water is shallow enough to hide reefs and shoals right under the surface, more than capable of ripping a hole in a ship.
And of course, you can't forget the weather. This area has a nickname for a reason, Hurricane Alley. It's one of the most active spots on Earth for tropical cyclones and crazy storms that can pop up out of nowhere and easily swallow a ship or a small plane.
All right, this last one is pretty wild, but it's totally possible from a physics standpoint. It's all about methane gas. The idea is that you could get a huge eruption of methane from the seafloor. This gas would make the water above it so bubbly and frothy that it would lose its density. Any ship unfortunate enough to be sailing right over it would lose all buoyancy and just sink like a rock, instantly, with no time to even send out a distress call.
So, okay, we've got magnetism, shallow seas, crazy weather, even giant ocean burps. These are all pretty good explanations, but what if the biggest force at play here isn't in the ocean at all? What if it's in our heads?
There's this thing called the Bader-Meinhof effect. It sounds complicated, but I promise you experience this all the time.
It's also known as the frequency illusion.
Think about it like this. You just bought a new car. Let's say it's a red convertible. All of a sudden, what do you see everywhere? Red convertibles, right? The number of red convertibles on the road hasn't changed, but your brain is now switched on to notice them. Your awareness is what's changed, not reality.
And that's the key right there. Once the idea of the Bermuda Triangle got into our heads, we all had our red convertible moment. We started paying way more attention to every accident that happened in that specific spot, while totally ignoring similar accidents happening all over the world. Which brings us to the official verdict.
I mean, don't just take my word for it. NOAA, that's the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, they've crunched the numbers. And their conclusion is pretty clear. When you look at the statistics, things don't go missing in the Bermuda Triangle any more often than they do in any other busy part of the ocean.
And you know who else agrees? The people who actually have to go out and rescue ships and planes. The U.S. Coast Guard. They're even more direct about it. They say they don't even recognize the so-called Bermuda Triangle as a special hazard zone. To them, the accidents are just a mix of a lot of traffic and a lot of bad weather. Simple as that.
So what about where it all started? That strange ball of fire that Christopher Columbus saw way back in 1492? Well, scientists are pretty sure he just saw a meteor burning up in the atmosphere. It would have been an incredible sight for sure, but definitely not a supernatural one.
So when you boil it all down, the Bermuda Triangle isn't so much a mystery of geography as it is a mystery of psychology. It's a perfect example of how a few weird events, amplified by a great story and our own brain's funny little tricks, can create a legend that captures our imagination for centuries. It really makes you wonder, doesn't it? What other great mysteries out there are just waiting for a simple, rational explanation?